In the quiet town of Willow Creek, Ohio, in the summer of 1983, I, Emily Harris, stood at the precipice of a life I thought I'd always wanted. I was 25, a rising star at the local hospital, my hands steady with a scalpel, my heart full of dreams. I'd just earned a coveted transfer to a prestigious military hospital in Virginia, a chance to save lives on a grand scale. But James Carter, my fiancé, had other plans for me. An army officer with a chiseled jaw and eyes that once made my heart flutter, he stood in my parents' modest living room, his voice firm. "Emily, you must give up that job if we're to marry. My sister Sarah needs it more. She's struggling, and you've got your parents' support. You'll be fine without it." I should have seen the warning signs, his cold insistence, the way he dismissed my ambitions as if they were a trivial hobby. But I was in love, or so I thought, caught in the haze of a 3-year crush that had bloomed in college. James was the golden boy of Willow Creek, the kind of man everyone admired, and I'd spent years believing his promises of a shared future. So I did what he asked. I called the hospital director and handed the transfer to Sarah, convincing myself it was a noble sacrifice for love. If stories of heartbreak and redemption move you, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us share more tales like mine, where the truth cuts deeper than any scalpel. That decision marked the beginning of my unraveling. I stayed in Willow Creek, trading the operating room for a nurse's station at James's request, believing it would make me a better wife. My days were filled with caring for his aging parents who lived in a creaky old house on the edge of town. They were kind, but demanding their ailments a constant reminder of my stagnating life. James, stationed hundreds of miles away, visited once every 2 or 3 years, always with excuses about military duties. Each time he'd sleep on the couch, claiming it was out of respect for me, promising he'd give me the dignity I deserved one day. I clung to those words like a lifeline, pouring my love into a marriage certificate that felt more like a contract than a vow. For 30 years, I waited my dreams of medicine fading into the monotony of bedpans and laundry. I was 55 when James's parents passed their deaths, freeing me to visit him at the Fort Bragg base in North Carolina. I packed a small suitcase, my heart swelling with hope that I'd finally claim the life we'd planned. But what I found shattered me. James and Sarah walked hand in hand through the base, and a boy and girl nearly 30 trailed behind, calling them Mom and Dad. The truth hit like a freight train. James had married Sarah behind me, building a family while I played the dutiful wife in Ohio. Fury consumed me. I charged at them, my fists flying, tears blurring my vision. James shielded Sarah, shoving me to the ground. Security dragged me away as I screamed about our marriage, clutching the worn marriage certificate I'd cherished for decades. But James spun a vicious lie, claiming I'd forged the document, that I was a delusional woman obsessed with him. His superiors, swayed by his rank and charm, believed him. They accused me of sabotaging a military marriage and indirectly causing his parents' deaths through neglect, a charge as absurd as it was cruel. The trial was a blur, my protests drowned out by James's authority. I was sentenced to 10 years in a federal prison. Prison broke me. Hard labor sapped my strength, and the mistreatment I'd endured from James's parents had already weakened my heart. I spent my days cursing James and Sarah, my hatred, a fire that kept me alive until it didn't. In 2013, a heart attack claimed me behind bars, my last thoughts a vow for vengeance. As my vision faded, I whispered to the universe, begging for a chance to make them pay. If you've ever felt the sting of betrayal, join our community by hitting that like button, leaving a comment about your own experiences, and subscribing to more stories of second chances. Your engagement fuels our mission to bring these narratives to light. As death closed in a searing white light engulfed me, not the end, but a cosmic gift, a chance to rewrite my fate. The universe, perhaps moved by my anguish, granted me rebirth, a rare opportunity to return to 1983 when James proposed. I opened my eyes in my parents' living room in Willow Creek, Ohio, the air thick with summer heat and the weight of memory. I was 25 again, my body young, my mind heavy with 30 years of pain. James stood before me, his uniform crisp, his voice carrying the same manipulative edge. "Marry me, Emily, but you need to give the Virginia job to Sarah. She's got no one else, and you've got your parents. You don't need it as much." His words, once a siren's call, now rang hollow. I saw the truth in his eyes, no love, only calculation. He wasn't proposing out of devotion, but to secure Sarah's future, using me as a pawn. My heart pounded with a burning rage, not with the flutter of love. I wanted to tear into him, to expose his deceit, but I held back knowing this second chance demanded strategy, not impulse. The cosmic light that brought me here hadn't just given me life, it had sharpened my resolve, a divine mandate to right the wrongs that had destroyed me. I took a deep breath, my voice steady despite the storm inside. No, James. I don't love you, and I won't marry you. The job's mine, I earned it through my skills, not favors. If Sarah wants it, let her prove herself. His smug smile faltered, eyes narrowing as if I'd slapped him. He stepped closer, his tone sharp. You're making a mistake, Emily. This is your chance to be with me. Don't think I'll ask again. His arrogance only fueled my defiance. I turned away, my footsteps firm on the hardwood floor, leaving him stunned in the living room. Outside, the Ohio sun beat down, but I felt lighter than I had in decades. The memories of my past life, 30 years of sacrifice, betrayal, and prison, were a map of mistakes I'd never repeat. In my first life, I'd been blinded by a crush that began in college when James's charm and military uniform had seemed like the answer to my dreams. I'd given up the hospital transfer believing it would bind us closer, only to be demoted to nurse at his request. The hospital director, thinking I lacked ambition, had sidelined me, and I'd spent years envying colleagues who wielded scalpels while I scrubbed floors for James's parents. Now I saw it all clearly. James had never loved me. He'd used my affection to elevate Sarah, his faithful partner, while keeping me tethered to a lie. The marriage certificate I'd once treasured was a prop in his deception, a tool to keep me compliant until he could discard me. But this time I was awake. The cosmic gift of rebirth wasn't just a second chance, it was a call to reclaim my life, to punish those who'd stolen it, and to build something new. Walking down the familiar streets of Willow Creek, I vowed to protect my career, reconnect with my parents, and never let James or Sarah near my heart again. The air in my parents' living room in Willow Creek, Ohio, felt charged with the weight of my reborn resolve. It was the summer of 1983. James Carter stood before me, his military uniform pressed to perfection, his dark eyes glinting with the same manipulative confidence I'd once mistaken for love. His words echoed from my past life, sharp and calculated: marry me, Emily, but you need to give the Virginia hospital job to Sarah. She's got no one, and you've got your parents' support. You don't need it like she does. Those words had been a spell in my first life, binding me to a future of sacrifice and betrayal. But now, armed with the clarity of rebirth, I saw them for what they were: a ploy to secure his sister's ambitions at the cost of mine. My heart thundered not with the flutter of a young woman in love, but with a righteous fury honed by 30 years of regret. I wanted to scream, claw at his smug face, and expose the deceit that had cost me everything. But the cosmic light that had returned me to this moment, whispered restraint, vengeance, required precision, not passion. I straightened, meeting his gaze with a steadiness that surprised even me. No, James, I said, my voice cold as steel. I don't love you, and I won't marry you. The job at the military hospital is mine. I earned it through my skills, late nights studying, and hand-saving lives. If Sarah wants it, let her prove herself to the director. I'm done being your pawn. James's confident smirk faltered, his jaw tightening as if I'd struck him. He stepped closer, his boots heavy on the hardwood floor, his tone sharp with disbelief. You're making a mistake, Emily. This is your chance to be with me. Don't think I'll beg you again. You're throwing away something most women in this town would kill for. His arrogance was breathtaking, as if his proposal was a gift I should eagerly accept. In my past life, I'd have softened, swayed by his charm and my own desperate crush that had begun in college, when he'd dazzled me with stories of military valor. But now I saw the truth: he'd never loved me. He'd used my affection to manipulate me, to elevate Sarah while keeping me tethered to a lie. I turned away, my footsteps deliberate as I headed for the door. I'm not most women, James, and I don't want you. Find someone else to play your games. His silence followed me into the humid Ohio air, a victory sweeter than I'd imagined. The streets of Willow Creek stretched before me, familiar yet new, each corner a reminder of the life I'd lost and the one I'd reclaim. My mind raced with memories of my past life, giving up the hospital transfer, being demoted to nurse, caring for James's parents while he built a family with Sarah. But this time I'd protect my future. I'd keep my job, reconnect with my parents, and never let James near my heart again. As I walked, I passed the local diner where James had once charmed me with milkshakes and promises. I'd been 22, a medical student with dreams of becoming a chief surgeon, when he'd swept into my life. His letters from the military had kept me tethered through college, each one a thread I'd woven into a fantasy of love. But now I saw those letters for what they were, tools to keep me compliant, to ensure I'd sacrifice my career for Sarah. My hands clenched, nails biting into my palms. I'd been a fool, but no longer. The hospital director had praised my surgical skills, calling me the most promising doctor of my generation. That job in Virginia was my ticket to proving it, and I wouldn't let anyone take it away. I reached my parents' house, the porch swing creaking in the breeze. My father, Dr. Thomas Harris, had always believed in me, urging me to chase my dreams. In my past life, I'd cut ties with him and my mother to marry James, a decision that haunted me when I learned of their deaths. This time I'd make it right. I'd sit with them tonight, share a meal, and tell them I'd chosen myself. The cosmic gift of rebirth wasn't just a chance to undo my mistakes, it was a mandate to build a life worthy of the woman I was meant to be. James could keep his lies. I had a future to claim. The weight of my past life clung to me like a shadow as I stood on the porch of my parents' house in Willow Creek, Ohio, the summer of 1983, stretching out before me. The cosmic light that had granted me rebirth had also gifted me clarity, forcing me to relive the memories of a life squandered on James Carter's deceit. In my first life, I'd been a medical prodigy, my hands steady in the operating room, my mind sharp with ambition. The transfer to the military hospital in Virginia was my chance to become a chief surgeon and save lives on a scale that mattered. But James, with his honeyed words and military charm, had convinced me to give it up for his sister Sarah. She needs it more, he'd said, and I, blinded by a 3-year crush, had believed him. That choice was the first domino in a cascade of loss. I called the hospital director, relinquishing the transfer to Sarah, thinking it would prove my love. Instead, it branded me as unambitious. The disappointed director demoted me from doctor to nurse at James's request, claiming it would help me focus on family. I stayed in Willow Creek, my days consumed by caring for James's aging parents in their creaky old house. Their ailments, arthritis, heart trouble, became my world, while my dreams of surgery faded. James visited rarely, once every 2 or 3 years, always sleeping on the couch, claiming it was out of respect. One day, Emily, he'd say, "I'll give you the dignity you deserve." I clung to those promises, my marriage certificate a talisman I'd trace with hopeful fingers, believing love would make it all worthwhile. For 30 years, I waited my life, shrinking to the confines of Willow Creek. I was 55 when James's parents passed their deaths a quiet release. I packed a suitcase, my heart swelling with hope, and traveled to Fort Bragg, North Carolina to join James. I imagined a new chapter where we'd finally build the life he'd promised. But what I found shattered me. James and Sarah walked hand in hand through the base, and a boy and girl nearly 30 called them Mom and Dad. The truth was a knife to my heart. James had married Sarah behind me, building a family while I played the dutiful wife in Ohio. They'd planned it from the start, using my sacrifice to secure Sarah's career at the military hospital where she'd risen while I languished. Rage consumed me. I charged at them, my fists swinging, tears streaming down my face. "How could you?" I screamed, my voice raw. James shielded Sarah, shoving me to the ground. Security dragged me away as I clutched our marriage certificate, shouting about our vows. But James spun a vicious lie, claiming I'd forged the document, that I was a delusional woman obsessed with him. His superiors, swayed by his rank and charisma, believed him. They accused me of sabotaging a military marriage and indirectly causing his parents' deaths through neglect, a charge as cruel as it was false. The trial was a mockery, my protests drowned out by James's authority. I was sentenced to 10 years in a federal prison. Prison broke me. The hard labor, cleaning, lifting, enduring endless days sapped my strength. The mistreatment I'd faced from James's parents had already weakened my heart, and the betrayal ate at my soul. I spent my days cursing James and Sarah, and my hatred was a fire that kept me alive. But in 2013, a heart attack claimed me behind bars, my last thoughts a vow for vengeance. As my vision faded, I whispered to the universe, begging for a chance to make them pay. The cosmic light had answered, returning me to 1983, the moment that had started everything. Standing on my parents' porch, I vowed to use this gift wisely. I'd protect my career, rebuild my bond with my parents, and ensure James and Sarah faced the justice they deserved. The summer sun hung low over Willow Creek, Ohio, casting long shadows across the cracked sidewalk as I stormed away from my parents' house, my rejection of James Carter still ringing in my ears. His smug proposal marry him but sacrifice my dream job at the Virginia Military Hospital for his sister Sarah had ignited a fire in me, fueled by the memories of a past life where his betrayal had cost me everything. I was reborn, gifted a second chance by a cosmic light, and I'd never vowed to let James manipulate me again. My heart pounded with rage and liberation as I turned onto Main Street, the familiar sights of Willow Creek's diner and general store grounding me in this new reality. As I passed the town square, a voice called out, gentle yet firm, "Emily Harris is still picking fights, I see." I spun around, my cheeks flushing with embarrassment and defiance. There, leaning against a low stone wall, stood Ethan Brooks, a tall figure in a military uniform, his hazel eyes twinkling with amusement. Ethan, a captain in the Army, was a former student of my father, Dr. Thomas Harris, who had sponsored his education through middle school. Orphaned young and raised by his grandmother until her passing, Ethan had clawed his way to success with a quiet strength contrasting James's flashy arrogance. He held a small bag of candy and a can of preserved peaches, a thoughtful gift for my parents. I bristled, still raw from my confrontation with James. "What's it to you? Never seen a woman stand up for herself." My tone was sharp, but Ethan's smile didn't waver. "I've seen plenty," he said, his voice calm. "But you've got a fire most don't. That guy James Wright looked like he deserved it." His words caught me off guard, disarming my anger. I'd scratched James's face in a heated argument, unable to contain my fury at his audacity. Ethan had witnessed it from across the street, yet here he was offering kindness instead of judgment. I'm sorry you saw that," I mumbled, my face burning as I realized how unhinged I must have looked. "He's been pestering me, and I just lost it." Ethan stepped closer, his presence steadying. "No need to explain, Emily. I've known guys like him. They think they can charm their way into anything." He paused, handing me the bag of candy for your folks. "I came to visit Dr. Harris. I owe him more than I can ever repay." His gratitude was genuine, his eyes softening as he mentioned my father, who'd seen potential in a poor orphan boy and given him a chance at education. I invited Ethan inside, eager to shift the conversation. As we sat in the living room, the scent of my mother's lavender candles filling the air, I studied him. Ethan was 28, his features sharp yet kind, his posture relaxed but commanding. My father had always spoken highly of him, calling him his most accomplished student, a man with a gentle spirit and an unyielding will. "Dad says you dropped out to join the Army," I said, pouring him a cup of my father's prized chamomile tea. Ethan nodded, his gaze distant. "I had to. After Gran died, the Army gave me purpose, a family, and a way. But your dad's letters kept me grounded. He's why I'm here today." His words stirred something in me. In my past life, I'd severed ties with my parents to marry James, a choice that haunted me when I learned of their deaths. Ethan had visited them yearly, even arranging their hospital care when they fell ill. I'd once seen him keeping vigil by their bedside, a memory that had moved me to pray for him in my darkest days. Sitting across from him, I felt a spark of hope, a chance to build a life with people who valued me. I said, "You're more like their kid than I am," half joking, but Ethan's smile was warm. "Nah, Emily. You're their pride. Always have been." As we talked, I realized Ethan was everything James wasn't: honest, grounded, and kind. The cosmic gift of my rebirth had given me more than a chance for revenge. It had brought allies like Ethan into my path. When he left, promising to return, I felt a flicker of something new. Not love yet, but possibility. I'd protect my career, rebuild my bond with my parents, and keep James at bay. Ethan's presence reminded me that I didn't have to face this fight alone. The next morning, I woke in my childhood bedroom in Willow Creek, the weight of my reborn mission pressing against my chest. I'd rejected James Carter's manipulative proposal, refusing to give up my hard-earned job at the Virginia Military Hospital for his sister Sarah. The cosmic light that had granted me this second chance in 1983 had sharpened my instincts, and I was determined to guard my future. But as I dressed for work at the local hospital, a knock at the door interrupted my thoughts. Standing on the porch was Sarah Carter, her delicate features framed by soft curls, her eyes wide with a practiced innocence that didn't fool me. "Emily, can we talk?" Sarah's voice was sweet, almost fragile, but I knew better. In my past life, she'd been the architect of my downfall, using her frail persona to manipulate James and steal my opportunities. Now she stood before me, likely sensing my rejection of James and hoping to salvage her plan. "I heard you turned down James's proposal," she said, her tone laced with concern. Is it because of me? I swear I'm just his sister. There's nothing between us. Her words were a performance, but her eyes betrayed a flash of disdain. She'd always craved prestige, clawing her way toward it through charm and deceit. I crossed my arms, leaning against the doorframe. Sarah, I don't know you and I don't care about your relationship with James. I'm keeping the job because I earned it. If you want to transfer, talk to the director, not me. Her smile faltered, but she pressed on, stepping closer. I just thought you'd understand. I grew up with nothing. James is all I have. That job could change my life. Her sob story was calculated, rooted in her hunger for status. In my past life, I'd learned she'd grown up resentful of her family's poverty, using her beauty and cunning to cozy up to anyone with power. She'd targeted James early, knowing his military connections could elevate her. I shut the door, my patience thin. Earn it yourself, Sarah. I'm done with favors. Her footsteps faded, but I knew she wouldn't stop. At the hospital, her scheming took root. Whispers followed me down the sterile halls, nurses muttering that my transfer was due to my father's influence, not my skill. She's just a spoiled doctor's daughter, one hissed. Bet she seduced someone for that job. The rumors bore Sarah's fingerprints. She'd always been adept at stirring others to do her dirty work. During a break, she approached, feigning mediation. Emily, don't mind the gossip, they're just jealous. But maybe if you gave me a chance, we could work together. I fixed her with a cold stare. Call me Dr. Harris, Sarah. And if you want a chance, prove your skills in the operating room, not the rumor mill. My words silenced the nurses who shuffled away, but Sarah's eyes glinted with calculation. She wasn't just after the job, she wanted to undermine me to prove she could outshine me. In my past life, her transfer to the military hospital had been the start of her rise, while I'd been demoted to nurse my hands calloused from housework instead of surgery. I'd envied her from afar, believing James's lies about her neediness. Now I saw her for what she was, a manipulator who thrived on others' downfall. As I prepped for a surgery that afternoon, the director, Dr. Patel, pulled me aside. Emily, your skills are unmatched, but these rumors are a distraction. Focus on your work, show them you're here for a reason. His trust bolstered me. I'd spent my past life watching others save lives while I scrubbed floors for James's parents. This time I'd fight for my place. Sarah's schemes were a challenge, but my rebirth had given me clarity. I was a surgeon, not a pawn. I'd protect my career and expose her for the opportunist she was, no matter how delicate her mask. The fluorescent lights of Willow Creek Hospital buzzed overhead as I scrubbed in for another shift, the sterile scent of antiseptic grounding me in my reborn purpose. It was the summer of 1983, and I, Emily Harris, was fighting to protect the military hospital transfer I'd earned, a lifeline to the surgical career I'd lost in my past life. Sarah Carter, James's sister, had other plans. Her delicate facade hid a ruthless ambition, and her whispers had already spread rumors that my transfer to Virginia was due to my father's connections, not my skill. But I was done being her pawn. The cosmic light that had granted me this second chance in 1983 had sharpened my resolve, and I was ready to prove my worth in the operating room. Sarah cornered me in the break room, her voice soft but laced with challenge. Dr. Harris, let's settle this fairly, a bet our medical skills judged by patient outcomes. If I win, you give up the transfer. If you win, I'll back off. Her eyes glinted with confidence, as if she believed her charm could outshine my training. I'd have doubted myself in my past life, softened by my love for James. But now I saw her for what she was, a schemer who'd built a career on manipulation, not merit. Fine, I said, my voice steady. Let's see who the patients trust more, but don't expect me to go easy. The hospital director, Dr. Patel, caught wind of the tension and assigned us a critical case, a high-ranking Pentagon official with a complex cardiac condition. This surgery is high stakes, he warned, his eyes flicking between us. No mistakes or your careers are on the line. Sarah nodded eagerly, but I saw the flicker of doubt in her eyes. She'd always relied on others to pave her way, James's influenced colleagues she'd charmed. On the other hand, I had spent years honing my craft, my hands steady from countless procedures in my past life, even if they'd ended in a nurse's role. The surgery day arrived, and the operating room was a crucible of tension. Sarah took the lead, her scalpel moving with a showy precision that masked her inexperience. I assisted, watching closely. Within minutes, her confidence faltered. She misjudged an incision, nicking a critical artery. The patient's vitals plummeted, monitors blaring as blood pooled. Step aside, I snapped, pushing past her. Dr. Patel joined me, his trust in my skills unspoken but clear. For 5 grueling hours, we worked in sync, repairing the damage, stabilizing the patient, and pulling him back from the brink. Sweat soaked my scrubs, but when we finally stepped out, the patient was alive and transferred to intensive care. Sarah stood outside, her face pale, hands trembling. The nurses who'd backed her gossip campaign were silent, their eyes avoiding hers. Dr. Patel's voice was cold. Dr. Carter, a mistake like that is a betrayal of trust. You're reassigned to nursing duties. If the patient pursues charges, you'll face the consequences. Sarah's lips quivered, but she nodded, her fragile mask cracking. James appeared, his military uniform crisp, but his face scratched from our earlier clash. It wasn't her fault, he insisted, his voice desperate. The records were incomplete, she misjudged them because of the bad prep. His defense was weak, a reflex to protect the sister he'd always favored. I turned to Dr. Patel, ignoring James. Director, let's focus on the patient's recovery. Talking to them is a waste of time. Dr. Patel nodded, his faith in me unwavering. As we walked away, I felt a surge of triumph. In my past life, giving up the transfer had cost me my surgical career, leaving me to envy others from the sidelines. Now I'd proven my skill not just to Sarah, but to myself. The transfer was mine, and I'd earned it. Sarah's failure was a step toward justice, but I knew she and James wouldn't stop. My rebirth had given me a chance to rewrite my story, and I'd fight for every inch of it, scalpel in hand. The victory in the operating room still thrummed through me as I left Willow Creek Hospital, the summer air warm against my skin. It was 1983, and I, Emily Harris, was reclaiming the life James Carter had stolen in my past existence. My surgical triumph over Sarah had cemented my transfer to the Virginia Military Hospital, but James's presence lingered like a storm cloud. His sister's failure deepened his desperation, and I sensed his next move would be personal. In my past life, his betrayal had been calculated, marrying Sarah behind my back, using me to elevate her career while I withered in Ohio. Now I saw the roots of his actions, a need for control, a greed for loyalty he never earned. Days after the surgery, I made a bold move to protect myself. At my parents' house, I'd met Ethan Brooks, a military captain, and my father's former student whose kindness contrasted with James's deceit. Impulsively, I'd proposed to Ethan not out of love, but to shield myself from James's harassment. Ethan, with his steady hazel eyes, had accepted, and we'd married in a quick courthouse ceremony. Our red marriage booklet symbolized my new path. Ethan's quiet strength gave me hope, but James's reaction was immediate and unhinged. He cornered me outside the hospital, his eyes bloodshot, his uniform slightly disheveled. "Emily, you can't do this," he said, his voice low and urgent. "You married him to spite me, didn't you? I love you. We can still fix this." His words were a twisted echo of my past life when I'd believed his promises. Now they sickened me. "James, you never loved me," I said, my voice cold. "You used me to get Sarah that job to build your perfect little family while I played the fool. I'm married to Ethan now. Please leave me alone." His face darkened, a flicker of something dangerous in his eyes. "You don't get to walk away," he hissed. "I'll make you see I'm the one you belong with." His obsession was new, starkly contrasting to the indifference he'd shown in my past life. Back then, he'd kept me at arm's length, visiting, rarely claiming respect while building a life with Sarah. I realized it was about power. He'd thrived on my devotion, knowing I'd sacrifice anything for him. My rejection had shattered that control, and he was spiraling. He spread rumors at the hospital, whispering to nurses that I'd seduced Ethan for the transfer, that my skills were a facade. The gossip stung, but I marched into Dr. Patel's office, marriage certificate in hand. "This is my truth," I said, laying it on his desk. "I earned my place. The rumors are James's doing." Dr. Patel nodded, his trust unwavering. "Focus on your work, Emily. You're our best." James didn't stop. He waited for me after shifts, his presence a constant shadow. One evening, as I pushed my bicycle down Main Street, he grabbed my arm, his grip bruising. He said, "You can't love him," his voice trembling with rage and desperation. "You led me on for years. You're mine." I yanked free, my hand flying before I could think, slapping him hard across the face. "You disgust me," I spat. "I love Ethan, and I'll never be yours. Keep this up, and I'll report you for harassment." His cheek reddened, but his eyes burned with a manic intensity that chilled me. "You'll regret this," he muttered, stepping back. "I'll ensure you're mine, even if I must tear everything apart." As I rode away, my heart raced. James's obsession was a new threat born from his need to reclaim the control I'd stripped away. In my past life, he'd discarded me once Sarah was secure, but now my defiance had ignited something darker, a greed for my loyalty, a need to possess what he'd lost. I knew he'd go to extremes just as he'd orchestrated my imprisonment with lies about a forged marriage certificate. But this time I was ready. My rebirth had given me clarity, and Ethan's presence was a shield. I'd protect my career, marriage, and future no matter what James tried. The hospital transfer was my first victory, but the war was far from over. The summer of 1983 in Willow Creek, Ohio, carried a warmth that felt familiar and foreign, as if the cosmic light that had granted me rebirth had altered the air I breathed. I, Emily Harris, had rejected James Carter's manipulative proposal and secured my transfer to the Virginia Military Hospital, a victory hard won against his sister Sarah's schemes. But James's growing obsession, his insistence that I belonged to him despite my marriage to Ethan Brooks, cast a shadow over my triumph. Ethan, a military captain and my father's former student, had become my anchor, and our impulsive courthouse marriage was a shield against James's harassment. Yet as I sat across from Ethan at the Willow Creek diner, the clink of plates and hum of conversation grounding me, I realized I knew little about the man I'd married. Ethan's hazel eyes met mine over a steaming cup of coffee, his smile gentle but carrying a weight I hadn't noticed before. "You're staring, Emily," he said, a teasing lilt in his voice. I flushed, pushing a spring roll toward him on our shared plate. "I admit that I was trying to figure you out. I proposed to get away from James, but you said yes without hesitating." Why, in my past life, I'd severed ties with my parents to chase James's empty promises, only to learn later that Ethan had been their rock, visiting yearly and caring for them in their final days. I wanted to understand the man who'd willingly stepped into my life. Ethan leaned back, his uniform crisp, but his posture relaxed, as if the diner's worn booths were as familiar as a battlefield. "Your dad, Dr. Harris, gave me a chance when no one else did." He began, his voice steady but tinged with emotion. "I was orphaned at 8, living with my grandmother in a trailer park outside town. She passed when I was 14, and I thought I'd end up on the streets. Your dad sponsored my schooling and wrote me letters when I joined the army. He saw something in me, a stubborn kid with nothing but grit." He paused, his fingers tracing the rim of his cup. "He talked about you all the time, Emily. Said you were fierce, brilliant, but too trusting. When I saw you take on James, I knew he was right." His words stirred a memory from my past life, a fleeting glimpse of Ethan at my parents' bedside, keeping vigil when I was too ashamed to face them after choosing James. "You were there for them when I wasn't," I said softly, guilt tightening my throat. "I cut them off for James, and I'll never forgive myself." Ethan reached across the table, his hand hovering near mine, hesitant but warm. "You're here now," he said. "That's what matters. Your parents never stopped loving you. They wanted someone steady for you. When you proposed, I said yes because I've always admired you from the stories your dad told, from the fire I saw in you. I figured we could figure the rest out together." His honesty disarmed me. In my past life, I'd been a widow in all but name, tethered to James's lies. Now Ethan offered a partnership, not just a shield. "Do you like me, Emily?" he asked, his tone calm but searching, as if he were asking about the weather. I looked at him, his sharp features, his quiet authority, the way he carried both gentleness and strength. My heart stirred, not with the blind passion I'd felt for James, but with something more profound, steadier. "Yes," I said, placing a spring roll in his bowl. "I like you, Ethan. That's why I want to stay married to you, not just to escape James, but because I think we could be good together." Ethan's fingers tightened around his chopsticks, a faint flush coloring his ears. "Good," he said, his voice soft. "Because I'm free today, let's register the marriage and get the paperwork done. I'll handle the wedding details later. What do you say?" I laughed, the lightness a stark contrast to the weight of my past. "Deal," I said, and 3 hours later we held matching red marriage booklets, our wedding photo, a hasty but official seal. As we stood outside the courthouse, Ethan's gaze lingered on me, intense yet tender. "Husband," I teased, and his ears reddened further. "I've got a mission soon," he said. "When I'm back, we'll figure out the rest together." For the first time, I felt not just protected, but seen. My rebirth had given me more than vengeance. It had given me Ethan and a chance at a love I'd never known. The days after my marriage to Ethan Brooks were a whirlwind of hope and tension. It was still the summer of 1983, and I, Emily Harris, had secured my transfer to the Virginia Military Hospital, proving my surgical skill against Sarah Carter's incompetence. But James Carter's obsession had escalated, his bloodshot eyes and desperate pleas haunting my every step. He'd spread rumors that I'd seduced Ethan for my job, but my marriage certificate and Dr. Patel's trust had silenced the gossip. Yet I knew James's desperation was dangerous. In my past life, he'd orchestrated my imprisonment with lies about a forged marriage certificate, his betrayal rooted in a need to control me while securing Sarah's future. My defiance had unhinged him, and I feared what he'd do next. Ethan's brief absence on a military mission left me vulnerable, and James seized the opportunity. One evening, as I locked up my office at Willow Creek Hospital, he cornered me in the parking lot, his voice low and menacing. "You think you can walk away, Emily? You're mine, not his." I shoved him back, my heart racing. "I'm married to Ethan, and I'll report you if you don't stop." His eyes glinted with a manic intensity, and he muttered, "We'll see about that." The next day, a call from the hospital turned my world upside down. Dr. Patel's voice was urgent. "Emily, Captain Brooks is in critical condition, an ambush on his mission. We need you for surgery. The orders are to save him at all costs." I rushed to the operating room, my hands trembling as I scrubbed in. Ethan lay on the table, his face pale blood seeping from wounds across his chest. A senior officer briefed me Captain Brooks was betrayed. "Someone leaked his unit's route to hostiles, likely an inside job." "He's critical, Dr. Harris. We're counting on you." My mind raced James. His obsession, his military access, and his desperation to eliminate Ethan. It had to be him. But there was no time for anger. I kissed my scalpel, a silent vow to save the man who'd given me hope. For 8 grueling hours, Dr. Patel and I worked stitching wounds, stabilizing vitals, pulling Ethan back from death's edge. When we finished, he was alive and transferred to intensive care. Exhausted, I collapsed outside the OR, my vision darkening. I woke in a strange room, my limbs heavy, a metallic taste in my mouth. James loomed over me, his expression twisted with a chilling obsession. "You're awake," he said, his voice cold. "I had you brought here. I couldn't let you stay with him." Horror gripped me. I was in a remote cabin far from the hospital. "You drugged me," I whispered, panic rising. James smirked, just a little, something to keep you calm. "Ethan won't make it through the night. You'll be a widow soon, and I'll be your husband. I don't care what anyone says, you're mine." His words confirmed my fears. "You leaked his route," I accused, my voice shaking. "You tried to kill him." James's eyes flickered with guilt, but he didn't deny it. "He was in the way," he said. "I did it for us." His obsession had driven him to treason, a betrayal that could destroy him. I had to escape, but my body was sluggish from the drugs. I played along, softening my tone. "Fine, James. I'll marry you, but I want a proper ceremony. Everyone must know I'm not the other woman." He relaxed slightly, a twisted tenderness in his gaze. "Of course, Emily. You're special. I'll make you happy." Sarah arrived with a tray of food, her face pale. I gave her a calculated smile. "What about Sarah? Will she be our sister now?" James glanced at her, irritation flashing. "She's nothing to me," he said, pulling her outside. Their voices rose, Sarah's pleading, laced with desperation. She was pregnant, likely by James, and feared he'd abandon her. I seized the moment, forcing my limbs to move, slipping out a back window as their argument escalated. I stumbled into the woods, heart pounding, until I heard shouts. Emily, Ethan's voice, cut through the darkness, bandaged but alive, leading a military team. They'd tracked James through Sarah, who'd cracked under pressure. James chased me, but Ethan's team apprehended him. Sarah, clinging to him, collapsed, clutching her stomach as blood stained her clothes, a miscarriage from the stress. I didn't look back, gripping Ethan's hand, tears streaming down my face. "You found me," I whispered. He pulled me close, his voice thick with remorse. "I'm sorry it took so long. I'll never let this happen again." The cosmic light had spared Ethan, and my skill had saved him. James's betrayal had backfired, and I was free, but the fight wasn't over. I'd ensure justice for Ethan myself and the future I was building. The air in Willow Creek, Ohio felt lighter as the summer of 1983 faded into autumn, the weight of my past life's betrayals lifting with each step I took toward a new future. I, Emily Harris, had escaped James Carter's obsessive grasp, saved my husband Ethan Brooks from his ambush, and secured my transfer to the Virginia Military Hospital. The cosmic light that had granted me rebirth had also given me clarity, and I was determined to see justice served. James's betrayal, leaking Ethan's mission route to hostiles in a desperate bid to eliminate him, had unraveled, and now, as I stood in my parents' living room, I prepared to rebuild the bonds I'd broken in my past life. James's arrest was swift. Ethan's team, led by Commander Lee, had tracked him through Sarah's reluctant confession, her fear of abandonment loosening her tongue. James faced charges of treason and attempted murder, his military career shattered. In a military tribunal, evidence piled against him, encrypted messages he'd sent to a rival faction, detailing Ethan's unit's movements, all to clear the path for his delusional claim on me. The judge's gavel fell like a thunderclap, sentencing him to 40 years in a federal prison. His face, once smug with confidence, was hollow as he was led away, his eyes searching for me in the courtroom. I turned away, my heart cold to his fate. He'd used me in my past life to elevate Sarah, discarding me with lies about a forged marriage certificate. Now his greed had destroyed him. Sarah's downfall was equally stark. Her miscarriage in the cabin, triggered by James's violence, had led to a hysterectomy, ending her hopes of motherhood. She tried to salvage her reputation, claiming James had coerced her into their affair, but the hospital staff saw through her lies. Her role in spreading rumors about my transfer, coupled with her surgical failure, cost her her job. Dr. Sru Patel, disillusioned, barred her from medical practice, relegating her to clerical work. When James's parents learned the truth that Sarah had seduced their son to secure her career, they stormed the hospital, denouncing her as the true manipulator. Disgraced, Sarah fled to her hometown, a small village in rural Ohio where her reputation followed her. She married an abusive widower with a child, a desperate bid to escape shame. But her life became one of drudgery and isolation, her dreams of prestige buried under years of regret. I turned my focus to healing old wounds. In my past life, I'd severed ties with my parents, Dr. Thomas and Margaret Harris, to marry James, a choice that haunted me when I learned of their deaths. Now I sat at their kitchen table, the scent of my mother's apple pie filling the air. "Mom, Dad," I said, my voice trembling, "I'm so sorry for pushing you away. I was blind, chasing a lie." My father's eyes softened, his hand squeezing mine. "You're our daughter, Emily. We never stopped loving you." My mother pulled me into a hug, her tears warm against my cheek. "You're home now," she whispered. Their forgiveness was a balm, mending the fractures of my past. We spent evenings reminiscing, my father sharing stories of his medical practice, my mother teaching me her recipes, rebuilding the family I'd lost. At the hospital, my career flourished. Dr. Patel mentored me, assigning complex surgeries that honed my skills. Each successful procedure, reconstructing a soldier's shattered leg, stabilizing a critical heart patient, built my confidence, a stark contrast to the nurse's role I'd been forced into in my past life. The Virginia transfer loomed, a chance to become a chief surgeon, and I was ready. While recovering from his injuries, Ethan visited, often his presence a steady anchor. One evening, as we walked through Willow Creek's park, he took my hand. "I'm proud of you, Emily," he said. "You're not just surviving, you're thriving." His words warmed me, a reminder that my rebirth had given me more than vengeance. It had given me a chance to live fully, surrounded by love and purpose. 2 years later, in the spring of 1985, the Virginia Military Hospital buzzed with activity as Emily Harris, now Dr. Emily Brooks, walked its halls as a chief surgeon. The cosmic light that had reborn me in 1983 had set me on a path of redemption, and I'd seized it with both hands. My life was a tapestry of triumphs, a thriving career, a loving marriage to Ethan Brooks, and a renewed bond with my parents. Our son, Thomas, named after my father, was a year old, his laughter filling our small home near the base. Each day felt like a gift, a stark contrast to the widow-like existence I'd endured in my past life, tethered to James Carter's lies. My professional journey had been grueling but rewarding. After moving to Virginia, I'd tackled complex cases, trauma surgeries, reconstructive procedures, earning respect from colleagues who once whispered rumors of favoritism. Dr. Patel's mentorship followed me, and his letters of recommendation paved the way for my promotion. I led a team of surgeons, my hands steady in the operating room, fulfilling the dreams I'd abandoned in my past life. One afternoon, as I emerged from a successful procedure, a nurse handed me a note from Ethan. "Dinner tonight. Piggy, let's celebrate you." His childhood nickname for me, a nod to my feisty youth, still made me blush, but it reminded me of the love we'd built. Ethan had recovered fully, and his military career was stronger than ever. He'd been promoted to Central, and his leadership in the ambush investigation earned him commendations. He shared more of his heart over dinner at a cozy restaurant overlooking the Potomac. He admitted, "I loved you even as a kid," his hazel eyes warm. "Your parents worried you'd burn too bright for anyone, so they asked me to look out for you." Marrying you was my chance to do that and to fall for you all over again. His words deepened my love a steady flame compared to the fleeting spark I'd felt for James. We were partners building a life of mutual respect, and our son was a testament to our bond. My parents visited often, and their pride was evident in every hug. My father, now retired, beamed at my achievements, while my mother doted on Thomas, teaching him nursery rhymes. Reconnecting with them had healed the guilt of my past life when I'd cut them off for James, only to learn of their deaths in prison. Now we spend Sundays together, their laughter a melody I'd never again take for granted. The cosmic light had given me this family, and I cherished every moment. James's fate was a distant echo. In prison, he'd withered under the weight of his crimes, treason, and attempted murder rooted in his obsessive need to control me. Word reached me that he was ill, his body failing. He begged to see me, but I refused my focus on a surgery that day. As I scrubbed in, I glimpsed a frail figure being wheeled past his eyes, catching mine for a fleeting moment. It was James, broken and regretful, realizing too late that his greed had cost him everything. He'd mistaken my defiance for a game, but I'd meant it when I said I'd never love him again. His death months later was a quiet end, a footnote to my victory. Sarah's life had crumbled too. After her disgrace in Willow Creek, she'd returned to her rural hometown, marrying an abusive man to escape her shame. Her inability to have children, a consequence of her miscarriage, left her isolated, her days spent in a cycle of drudgery. I felt no pity. She'd chosen her path, manipulating James and others for her own gain. Her end years later was a lonely one, her dreams of prestige buried under the weight of her choices. As I tucked Thomas into bed one evening, Ethan wrapped his arms around me, his breath warm against my neck. "Piggy," he murmured. "How about another kid?" I laughed, nudging him playfully. "We're an old married couple now. Don't get greedy." But my hand rested on my belly, a secret smile forming. I was pregnant again, a surprise I'd share soon. My rebirth had been a cosmic gift for vengeance, love, family, and purpose. James and Sarah had faced their 3,000 kinds of suffering, but I lived happily ever after, surrounded by those who truly valued me.